Welcome to AM Best Audio.
In the midst of hurricane season, conversations around flood risk are becoming increasingly urgent for agents and insurers alike. Recent storms, including Hurricane Helene, have highlighted how flooding is no longer confined to traditional coastal or FEMA-designated zones, with significant damage occurring far inland across parts of the Carolinas and Appalachia. As a result, insurers and advisors are facing growing pressure to educate homeowners, many of whom still assume flood damage is covered under standard homeowners policies, about the increasing risk of inland flooding and the critical need to better understand potential coverage gaps before the next storm strikes. I'm Lori Chortis for AM Best Audio, and joining us now to discuss that is Diane Delaney, Executive Director of the Private Risk Management Association. Diane, welcome. It's great to speak with you again. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Diane, how have recent storms like Hurricane Helene reshaped perceptions of where serious flood risk exists?
Yeah, so the way you opened this, Lori, is beautiful and exactly to what you said, but unfortunate. Helene reinforced that serious flood risk is no longer coastal or a waterfront issue. And what changed for many homeowners after that is that they saw inland communities experience devastating flood damage. And that includes a lot of places that historically did not view themselves in a flood-exposed area. And that's truly pushing agents today to have flood conversations in markets where those conversations may not have been as common before.
So, Diane, what are you hearing from agents and insurers about homeowner awareness of flood exposure today? And where are the biggest knowledge gaps when it comes to standard homeowners coverage?
It's interesting because what we're hearing is that awareness is improving, but personal risk recognition is still lagging. So many homeowners understand that flooding is more common because we're seeing what's happening on the news, but they still believe their property itself is low risk. And some of that, and to this biggest gap here, is really the coverage understanding, especially the assumption that a standard homeowner's policy is going to respond if there is flood damage to their home.
So what can insurers and associations like the Private Risk Management Association do to help close that education gap more effectively?
And I think it's understanding where their gap is coming in. So many homeowners, they hear homeowners insurance and assume it's covered, regardless of how the damage happens to their home. But as we know, flood is a very specific coverage. And unless it's clearly explained to a homeowner the difference between water damage, water backup, and flood, we don't want clients walking away with a false sense of security. And that's where insurers and associations like PRMA have an important role to play. And for us, what we take a closer look at is how are we equipping our agents with better education and, most importantly, better discussion points so that they can have more proactive conversations with their clients before that loss occurs. And just a quick example of that is, instead of talking about the coverage itself, it's allowing these homeowners to come to the conclusion of how they would want their insurance policy to respond in the event an event happens. So, equipping them with tools to be able to ask the homeowner, in the event your home suffers a loss from water entering into the home, how would you like your insurance policy to respond on your behalf? And in that instant where a homeowner says, I thought my home policy would respond, that is a great example to highlight, no. If a flood is to happen where water is entering into your home, your standard policy will not respond. Would that concern you? And that allows you to have more of this person-to-person conversation as opposed for it to be insurance jargon-led. And that's what we really try to push from the association standpoint, is equipping them with those simple conversations to have.
Customize your data experience. BestLink now offers an interactive company dashboard that provides company-level intelligence in a fast, user-friendly interface featuring interactive tables, charts, and Sparkline performance histories. Customize the dashboard tiles to prioritize the insurer ratings, data, and analytics that best support your workflow. AM Best. Our insight, your advantage.
Diane, what challenges do agents and insurers face when encouraging homeowners outside coastal or FEMA designated zones to consider flood insurance? And how can those conversations be made more effective?
Sure. That hardest conversation is with the client who says, I'm not near the coast, so I don't need flood insurance. But we have to start moving away from conversations being focused on geography alone and more towards the conditions around an individual homeowner's property. So what's the rainfall amount and drainage? Has grading development changed with construction? How does water run off? Do you have finished lower levels? So most of those effective conversations are becoming more meaningful when you're discussing the impact on the home and the family's ability to recover from that. And the best advisors out there right now are the ones that are helping clients think more about resilience broadly, with that flood insurance policy being one component of a larger preparedness strategy rather than just a standalone product.
What role can data, mapping, and technology play in helping insurers better identify and communicate flood risk to policyholders?
So I think importantly, when we look at data and mapping, it can make the conversation more objective with them. It's one thing to tell a client they may have a flood exposure, but it's another thing to show them the topography, the drainage, the development, and the rainfall patterns to their specific property. That has a lot more meaning. But on the other end of that too, and the positive is that technology also helps carriers and advisors move from just these broad assumptions, but have more of this property specific guidance.
And Diane, looking ahead, what proactive steps should insurers and advisors take now to better prepare clients for increasing widespread flood risk?
Yeah, so exactly to what you just said is being more proactive as opposed to reactive. And what I mean by that is, making the flood discussion a part of the annual risk review as opposed to just a conversation that happens post-storm. And it's reviewing a number of things with them of, how their construction has changed around their home, recent renovations, lower level exposures, what mitigation steps are they taking to protect from water entering the home. And that goal right now should be to help clients understand what they can transfer through insurance, what they can mitigate physically, and then what risk they may choose to retain. I think all of that is a part of this whole package when we talk about flood and also other important coverages to protect our homeowners.
Diane, this has been fascinating, so insightful, and it's always such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Lori, for having me.
That was Diane Delaney, Executive Director of the Private Risk Management Association. For AM Best Audio, I'm Lori Chortis.
Looking to get the full attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms that will do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day. Find out more by calling AM Best Advertising Sales at 908-439-2200, extension 5399, and have a great day.